Jeremy Rogers. I'm from St. George, Utah, born and raised. Have lived almost my whole life here. We had a stint in Colorado where we lived there for, I don't know, about 4 or 5 years in Denver, in the Denver area. So that's a little bit about me.
I'm Brittany, and I grew up in Colorado, and I came here to play tennis at Dixie and go to dental hygiene school, and that's where we met. When Mac was a baby, he was a normal, healthy baby, and then when he was 8 months old, he started showing some weird symptoms, like he was bruising really easily. He had little bruises on his eyes. They were kind of like the end of a bruise looks, and we took him in, and they're like, he's fine. He said, I think he maybe bumped it, and we're just like, he doesn't move.
Yeah.
Like he didn't do
wasn't
anything.
a really active kid to where he was hitting his head a lot. But
So then a couple of weeks went by, and he just kind of got sicker and sicker, and we took him in again. I think we took him in like 3 different times, and by the end he had like a double eye infection, double ear infection. He was just like really sick, but they still thought it was just viral. And I was working, as a hygienist at the time, and I remember I woke up on Friday and he was just so sick. And I went to work, and Jeremy called me and
he
was
wasn't
like,
really eating a lot too. Like he was normally a pretty hungry kid, so that was starting to really concern us. We're like, he's just not really eating much.
yeah. And so I came home, and then we ended up going into the pediatrician on Saturday morning, and I think he knew, like, this isn't good. So they tried to do some tests, and they did blood work, and then he came back in and told us, you need to get to Children's Hospital. Like, he had just told us that he had leukemia, and we didn't know. I had no idea anything about that. That just kind of spiraled into trying to figure out what type of leukemia he had, and he had AML. It's the less common type of leukemia where you do like 4 or 5 months of intense therapy all in the hospital. We just stayed there. He would do like, one round would be 28 days or something like that. Then they'd send you home for 5 days while your counts recovered, and then you'd come back for another, about month-long stay. And then, you're just every day doing chemotherapy, watching the numbers, and just blood transfusions, platelet transfusions.
It was just like day and night, like nurses, doctors, and all the time.
Yeah. Right around his first birthday, we were finally getting out of the hospital, and then he had to get his Broviac removed and, all the surgeries. And then after that, it was like monthly blood work. They'd go in, poke his finger, and check everything. And we lived like that for, almost two years.
Yeah. It just seems so, like, I don't know, just kind of distant in my memory now because so much has gone on in that amount of time. But yeah, it was just how we live life. Blood draws, and yeah. And as time goes on and you do more blood draws and you start to get a little bit more comfortable, like, okay, maybe this thing's going to stay away.
And he is in remission from his AML,
Yeah.
so that his leukemia hasn't come back.
So a couple of years had gone by, and we moved back, and I went back to work with my dad. And we had only lived in this house for like
3 months.
3 months, maybe.
Mhm.
And her younger sister was graduating, who lived in Kansas, and we just took off to go be part of the graduation. And Mac was 3 years old, just turned 3.
Yeah, he had just turned 3, and then he was just like got sick, and we thought, is he sick from the airplane or whatever, or did he he's just sick like kids get, and it was not doing well again. And we had kind of put it had been a couple years, so like he said, we were kind of more comfortable that yeah, he had a really crazy medical past, but nothing was really on our radar. But then he got really dehydrated and we needed to take him into the emergency room, so we went to an emergency room in Kansas.
He had fallen asleep in my arms, like was just uber tired.
That was
like
really weird.
6:30, and I just remember looking at her being like, I don't know what's going on. Like
He does not fall asleep.
He doesn't. He's not like a sleeper. He just stays up. But then yeah, at the hospital, he did kind of seem like he got a little bit better, and we were just kind of like, okay, well, cool. And they're like, yeah, we'll just discharge you. Yeah, we think it's just a virus. Carry on. Let us know if.
We went to Target to get him a little Lightning McQueen. He loves cars. And I remember I took his picture with his little Lightning McQueen, and he smiled like this. And like, I don't know, it was just like, it just kind of hit me like, whoa, like, this isn't right,
One thing that really concerned us was he was in a stroller, and it was hot, and he had said that he was cold.
Mm-hmm.
And we were like, and then he said, put my shoes on, and his shoes were on, and we were like, your shoes are on. Like, I'm confused. What's going on right now? So that made us really nervous, like,
it's not right. We got in the car and we just drove. We were like, if there's one place that knows him and can tell us like what's going on and if he's okay, it was Children's Hospital. And so we showed up there and they ran tests, and then they're like, yeah, let's do an MRI. So we're like, okay, and I remember we were waiting we were just waiting, and then all of a sudden this guy in a suit came and introduced himself with oncology, and it was like, oh.
It was like one of those moments you see in like shows or movies where he's like, because we were just out in the waiting area, he's like, let's go step into a room, and we're just like, okay, here we go. Let's hear what he's got to say.
So that's when we went in there with him, and just like he said, he like sat us down, and we're just like, what is, we knew he was sick, obviously, but you just don't even think that. You just don't even think, and he's like,
he had, the leukemia thing was like life altering. So you're thinking, okay, we've been through something pretty difficult, so if it's a relapse, let's get going, get him going. But yeah, and then when he's like, well, we found a couple tumors in his brain, we were just like, okay, well, this is completely different, completely new. And
it was a lot. I mean, it was just a lot to take in.
The problem he was having was the pressure on his brain was so intense that's why he was feeling weird things and saying weird things, and so that was one of the first things
asymmetry and everything.
Was they ran a drain, like basically it just was hanging out in his head.
It was an external drain.
Yeah, an external drain, and he had that for.
He had that for a while.
Week or more. And it was really bizarre. It's one of the, don't let him yank on it because they'll pull it right out of his head. So you're watching him every time he's doing something. And, they weren't insensitive, but it was like, we need to get moving on this. So you got to make a decision. And we're just like, let's go for the surgery. And
they were able to get all of the smaller one.
Yeah.
That was closer to the surface, and then the other one was kind of deep by the thalamus, and that surgery lasted almost 12 hours. While you have 12 hours to wait, you're considering all the things that could be your new future. But he came out, and they're pretty strict about the rules after anesthesia about what the kids can eat, and I think he came out saying that he wanted me and he wanted pepperonis
and green pretzels
and garlic pretzels. So
I think that was the next chapter after all the surgeries, was like really intense physical therapy, occupational therapy for like months, and it was like all we did, like all the time. So
when he was 3, that's when he started. after the surgery and after we waited for a little while after that surgery. I think we had a couple week break before they were like, we're going to start chemotherapy.
Because then he had to get another port. So he had a Broviac when he was younger for his first cancer, then a port for this cancer and chemo, and then that's also when he started doing multiple chemo pills a day and chemo shots a day. And
Last summer, the side effects of his chemo were probably the worst that I had ever seen it. So that was just rounding 3 years of being on the chemo for his brain cancer, and just
it was really bad. Like, he was just
bumps,
sick. Like,
and he couldn't go anywhere. He just
anywhere.
felt terrible all the time, and he had just no quality of life,
Yeah,
you know.
that was-
And every day was just such a struggle for him, and he just didn't feel good ever. I just knew that I was okay with, you know, if the consequence was bad, then I was okay with that, because
it
I
wasn't
just was
gonna-
seeing, you know, I was up close with him every day. When you call someone at the hospital, they just don't see that. And so that's when we took him off. And
And that's a pretty big decision too. That wasn't just like, we had thought about it for quite a while, and I even think that maybe the doctors, they might have even kind of advised against it, like
just really risky.
yeah, like, because it's just his tumor. It's just, they have no literature on his situation, so it's kind of just he's writing the book for his situation. And
He does his scans every 3 months, and you don't know what's going to happen. I think it's just a live situation, you know. And I remember one of the appointments we went to in the fall, he just told us, you know, if this is your break, I want you to enjoy it. And so, you know, kind of being sent home to make the most of it is, you know, a lot of pressure. But we've lived that all the time. You just don't know what's gonna happen. And so anyways, we've just felt really blessed to be able to see him live, like play with his brothers, play in the sun. I mean, he hasn't had a summer where he can be in the sun, you know?
We've altered our life in a way where everything is just about us and our family, and we spend as much time with him as we can and try to it's just all our focus is on. Deep down inside, I feel like he knows. I feel like he knows what he's going through, because sometimes he'll try to fight the MRI or whatever he's has to do, but you almost like see on his face, like, okay, like, let's do it. Like,
but he's been asked to do so many hard things, and he does it with a lot of grace and understanding. Like, we, you know, taking chemotherapy for 3 years, and I mean, he just kind of accepted that this is what he had to do, and that we were trying to keep him safe and keep him healthy. And it was actually Jeremy's idea. A long time ago, you said, I think you should write a children's book. And last year when he got really sick, it had been something that had been on my mind that I wanted to do, but, you know, motherhood, homeschooling, all these things, it just kind of sat, and it was just kind of a scary time. And I just thought, I don't know how much longer I'm going to have with him, and I don't want to do this without him. I just got to work, and, you know, the words came really easily. I knew, you know, I had been thinking about it in my head for a long time, and I found an illustrator, and now it's ready to be printed. So just been a really special project that we've kind of worked on together, and it's called This Is Hard, But You Can Do It. And the main character is Mac, and he's nervous before a big day. It's a surgery, and you know, his mom leans down and they just talk about, you know, overcoming that day with hope and positivity and courage, and it's meant to just really encourage kids that they can do hard things and that they're loved. And I've seen from watching him, I think the most inspiring thing is just watching how resilient he is. And I think that we all have that resiliency, and just kind of bringing that out when we're faced with adversity. Yeah, it's ready to be printed, but I needed money to print it, and so I decided to launch a Kickstarter, and I did that on Monday, just to share it and give people the opportunity to pre-order the book and the audio book, which me and Mac are going to do together, which I think is going to be really neat. And I launched it on Monday, and 6 hours later it was fully funded. You know, Kickstarter is just kind of the vehicle to really achieve the bigger goal of sharing this book and helping families, and that's what I want to do. And so it's just been so neat to see people really connecting with the message, and you know, a lot of people have drawn a lot of strength from Mac, and I've, you know, received lots of messages from people that, you know, I had to go do this, you know, I had to go to the dentist and get a root canal, but I thought about Mac and I thought, this is hard, but I can do it. They've been able to lean on Mac's strength, and I hope that kids and families will be able to take the words that we've learned over lots and lots of years of doing hard things and just be able to be more hopeful in dark times.
And we don't realize how much people are watching him, but I mean, over the years we've gotten a lot of messages like that, and it's just like, oh, that's really neat. Like, that's, if there's one thing that brings me joy, it's that people can draw strength from him and what he's had to do.
I feel like this is our opportunity to take all those hard things and turn it into something good, and then that's what we have to give, you know. One thing I'm looking forward to the most is taking those books and giving them to these kids and these families that I know how they're feeling, and it's so scary, you know, but to be able to give them something bright and sweet that they can have, I can't wait for that. So,
well, like, even when we were there going through all the things, like the place is so, like, you just want to, like, I don't know, like, you want to be there and you want to help people, and there's just kids everywhere going through all different kinds of things, and we've always talked about, like, being able to give back to that hospital and to the families that are there. You know, we made
and other families going through other hard things, you know.
Yeah, it's I don't know, it's we're grateful that we can provide this book and the things that we've learned, and hopefully it continues to help people out. So
I think what I hope that families get from, you know, having this book in their house is just a really positive way to support their kids. And I think a lot of times, especially right now, you know, we're all navigating a really different world. A lot of, you know, all the kids are out of school, and it's just different, all these things. And that's hard for the kids. It's hard for the parents, but, you know, if we can kind of take it down to these basics of, like, take this one step at a time, and understanding that we are going to be challenged, but that it really is an opportunity to become better. I mean,
regardless of who you are, at some point in your life, whether you're young or old, like, there's going to be hard things. There just is. It's just the way life goes. And I know the one thing that I've learned from watching my son go through all the things that he has is you get to choose how you react to those situations. And living in that hospital, you see everyone else's reactions to things, and some good, some bad, some whatever. But you get to choose. And I'm not saying that hard things can be happy and just so simple, but you really get to choose that. And I definitely, thinking back, have drawn a lot of strength from my son. And maybe it was his innocence as a kid and not knowing what was coming or anything like that, but he just always, I say this because you can look back at a lot of his pictures, and he always just had a smile on his face living in a hospital. He didn't know any different, and that was just what he chose. So it's just, that's what I always think to myself in any situation. How am I going to go about this? Am I going to let this just take me down, or am I going to try to learn from it and grow, even though it is difficult?